Great. Good morning, good evening, everyone. My name is Noose from Polygon Health, and today we have a very special guest, Gemma Seager. First, I'll introduce myself and Polygon, and then have Gemma introduce herself, and we'll go through sort of Gemma's journey and how she got to be where she is and the impact she wants to make on the multiple myeloma community. So by way of introduction, my name is Noose. I handle patient engagement for Polygon Health. And what Polygon Health is a platform that connects patients and researchers. And what we do is we specialize in studies where a patient can speak directly to a researcher, and they're fully remote studies, and they involve analysis of your health records and surveys and a lot more, with direct participation between a patient and researcher. So currently we're working on a multiple myeloma, a CAR T study for those who have taken Carvykti or Abecma. And our website is polygonhealth.com/mm for sign up. If a person qualifies and they complete the study, they can get $750. And if you know somebody who does qualify and completes the study, you can get a referral fee of $100. So with that introduction out of the way, Gemma, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Gemma. I'm in the UK. I don't know if you can tell by listening to me talk. I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma in the summer of 21. Yeah, 21. I had to think about that. Had to think about that quite hard. After I'd had back pain for some time. And I had induction treatment and a stem cell transplant. And now I am finally in remission and on maintenance. It took me a while to get there. They measure it from the proteins in the paraproteins in my blood. It took me a while to get those down to 0, but that's where they are now. So
excellent. And congratulations on that. And we're going to sort of get into that whole journey. So for those who don't know, also Gemma is quite has quite the following on Instagram in particular, over 6,000 followers, and has become quite a multiple myeloma social media influencer, I should say. So we want to learn a little bit about that and how she happened upon that. So the first part of where we'll start is sort of Gemma's journey, and then move into how she got the platform that she did. And then lastly, sort of the impact that she wants to make on the multiple myeloma community. So with that out of the way, Gemma, do you want to tell us a little bit about sort of your background and when you got diagnosed and sort of that beginning part of the multiple myeloma journey?
Yeah, well, obviously 2020, everyone remembers 2020, right? That was a fun time for everyone. I was working as a personal trainer, and I'd done a lot of training people outside. Obviously we were all working out at home, and at the end of August 2020, I slipped doing some squats, holding some weights, and hurt my back. And I thought, oh, that really hurts, but I've hurt my back before. I figured that would go away. To cut a long story very slightly shorter, it didn't go away. And in fact, it got worse, so that by Christmas 2020, I could barely move. I couldn't walk properly. I saw a physio who gave me some exercises to do, and I was a little bit like, I can't actually do them. They got me to do glute bridges, and I was like, I can't get my hips off the floor. And they were like, oh, we'll try planks instead. And I was like, that's not the point. I'm a personal trainer. I should be able to do an unweighted glute bridge. Something weird is going on. But they discharged me and said, come back if it's not better in 3 months. So in 3 months, it had been very kind of up and down. But then it started to get really bad again towards the end of March 21. I called the physio and had another assessment, and she was a bit kind of tusk back pain, like it was nothing important. By this point, I couldn't brush my teeth properly. I couldn't sit in a chair properly. I had to eat standing up because it was too uncomfortable to hold a knife and fork while sitting down. Eventually, I managed to get her to refer me for an MRI. I finally got a date for the MRI, which was in June, and then ended up crying at my GP because that was like 3 months away. So she got that bumped up to urgent, and in May I was then I went in to get my MRI done. At which point they log rolled me onto a scoop and wheeled me into A&E. Because immediately they did the MRI, they could see one of my vertebrae had just like, it's like a pancake. So I was like, all right, my discs are fine then. I don't have a slipped disc. So that was good news. I spent a few days in hospital. They were umming and ahhing about whether to do surgery, which they actually decided not to do in the end. They did a lot of blood tests. I had a bone marrow biopsy. I had a biopsy of my spine, assorted investigations. And in June 21, I was then had an appointment with the hematology department, who told me I had multiple myeloma. Now, obviously, I'm pretty young for myeloma. I had lesions in my shoulder and my coccyx. All of my other results pointed to solitary plasmacytoma. So in which case it would have been just radiation and then wait and see, cross your fingers. But because I had multiple lesions, it was a diagnosis of multiple myeloma. I think the paraproteins that they measured in my blood were not super high. They were around 8, I think, from memory. And it was less than 10% cells in my bone marrow, which was one of the other criteria. So if it hadn't been for the multiple lesions, it wouldn't have been, I mean, it's still not a great diagnosis, but
Right.
would have been one step down maybe on the myeloma ladder. Yeah, so I then started my induction treatment, which I had Velcade, thalidomide, and dexamethasone.
Yep.
Dexamethasone is the devil, and I hate it. Everything else could just about cope with. So I had cycles of that going up to October. Then I had a stem cell harvest. I think my proteins got down to 2 at that point, I think. I had my stem cells harvested in November. So I had to give myself GCSF injections, and then they harvested my stem cells. And then in December, I went into hospital for a stem cell transplant. So I had...
Is this December of 21 or 2?
21, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they started treatment straight away. I had a few months of the induction treatment and then straight in for the stem cell transplant. So I had my transplant was on the 15th of December. Something like 7 bags of cells they gave back to me, which was a fun afternoon. And the high dose chemo, obviously, which I don't recommend. I was in hospital for Christmas Day. Poor me. They bought me a Christmas cracker. I don't think you don't have Christmas crackers, do you, in the US?
I don't think so, but no. Is that a classic?
They're they take 2 people to pull them, and they bought me one in isolation. Lovely. So yeah, I had that. I went home. I did not go into complete remission at that point. So kind of 100 days after transplant, I think my cells were my paraproteins were like 1.3 or something. So, and then they put me on lenalidomide or Revlimid for maintenance.
Yeah.
So I take 10 milligrams of Revlimid now, 21 days on, 7 days off.
Got it. Perfect. Okay.
And it was around a year ago now, I think, around Christmas 22, I finally got to undetectable with my paraproteins. So that put me in complete remission now, technically.
Excellent. Excellent. Congratulations. And thanks for walking through sort of the medication journey as well as some of the numbers there. Maybe you can, because a lot of people are going through this and they just, they don't know what the options are or what different types of treatments are depending. So that's very helpful. But what was going through your mind as you were sort of like, coming upon this news and going through these treatments? Like how was the mental journey that overlays this sort of data journey?
Well, I don't. By the time I got the diagnosis, I had been given vague hints of what it could be, and by that point, I felt like I was like the world's foremost expert on multiple myeloma. I had read everything I could possibly find on it, which is the way I deal with things. So when it was obviously very stressful, but also a bit of a relief when I was admitted to hospital, because I was a bit like, I did say my back hurt. So although it was stressful, I did feel a little bit of relief that finally somebody had gone, oh yeah, it does hurt. Crikey, that's awful. When the diagnosis came again, by that point, I don't think I was surprised. I was anticipating it.
You were prepared.
Yeah. So obviously it wasn't a fun piece of news,
Right.
but then you go straight into kind of like coping mode. So they give you all this, you've got stuff to do, you've got like a list of things you have to keep up with. There's new drugs to Google, find out everything about. I think sometimes healthcare professionals tend to forget that you've never done this before. So there is a lot of it's all brand new, and they give you information like, oh, and then you're going to have this, and you think, what's that?
Right.
So, and sometimes it's quite difficult to know who to ask, where to go for
Right.
information. So there was a little bit of uncertainty. I think I felt a bit like I was walking a tightrope some of the time. Like I was fine as long as I stayed here, but then the tiniest little thing would happen and throw me off balance, and I'd have a total mental breakdown. And
Got it. So what kind of advice could you give to somebody who's coming upon the news and just starting this journey, and you were very prepared. I guess you read everything and took the bull by the horns, as they say. So do you feel like, I mean, you've heard other people's stories given your platform, and how did you sort of become more resilient and sort of take it in stride versus maybe some other people are not as equipped and can't manage the ropes as well? How can they sort of get a grasp on the situation in a way that worked for you?
I think the best piece of advice I have is to take it one step at a time. I mean, whether that's 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time, one little chunk at a time. Do not be worrying about your stem cell transplant while you're having your initial treatment. Don't be worrying about your maintenance while you're having your stem cell transplant, and don't be worrying about coming out of hospital while you're in hospital. Like this, all you can do is deal with one thing at a time. Listen to your doctors. Don't be afraid to ask if you're not sure about something, because sometimes they'll give you like I say, and they give you the impression that you should know all this already, and you're a bit like, ow. So don't be afraid to just keep asking questions.
Beautiful. That's very good advice. So let's talk about the community and the support system that you found, right? You read a lot, but then, now the social needs start to emerge, right? And what communities were helpful to you in your journey? And then ultimately, why did you decide to start your own community through Instagram and amass the thousands of followers that you have? So maybe talk a little bit about beginning kind of community discovery and then sort of coming into your own community, if you will.
Well, I had some following on Instagram prior to my diagnosis anyway. I was a blogger for years, so I did have some following on Instagram prior to that. But I then got a lot of support from, though I think it was a bit of a twist in the tail, like Gem suddenly gets incurable cancer, yay. So that was a bit of a twist in the tail. I think. But then there was a whole community of people that I then found through Instagram as well, of other people who also have kind of similar diagnosis, whether it's myeloma, different types of blood cancer, or even things like stage 4 breast cancer and things like that. There is a community out there, and there is the support there. I also have recently set up a Facebook group called Too Young for Myeloma, because like I mentioned earlier, I think it's like less than 0.5% of people. I mean, myeloma is not exactly that common anyway, but less than 0.5% of them are under 50.
Right.
So, you know, we're talking literally in like the hundreds a year of
Right.
people. So, yeah, so we do have a Facebook group and an Instagram page called Too Young for Myeloma as well, which I set up with a friend of mine called Kerry. And just to give us a place where you can find that support, because again, a lot of people, older people, don't have the same concerns that somebody slightly younger might have.
Right.
They don't
Right.
have to worry about going to work necessarily. They might be already retired.
Right. Right.
um yeah, so that they wouldn't necessarily have kind of issues around their fertility and those kind of things that might be affecting younger people. So it's really helpful, and I think Instagram in itself lends itself to maybe that slightly younger crowd.
Yeah.
So if you were to go to kind of face-to-face meetup groups,
Mhm.
then you may find slightly older
Right.
people there, whereas these kind of online communities kind of have a little bit more of a kind of younger
Right.
audience, just by the very nature of them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, myeloma is typically over 60, kind of condition. And so, but what we find in the online communities is that it skews younger. And it's just the nature of being online and active. So Instagram, Facebook, I think these are, and the previous guests that we've had on this podcast have skewed younger as well. So, for those who feel like, they're earlier in life and how could this happen, and just looking for answers, the community for that demographic is quite deep, and Gemma's community is very unique in that way. We'll add the links here as well so people can just click through. But one of the things that I sort of took away from your page, Gemma, is around sort of positive mindset and sort of life balance, and sort of body awareness and meditation, and just sort of like that uplifting mental mindset to have. And so maybe you could talk a little bit about how to not just cope, but like survive and thrive and elevate yourself through this sort of diagnosis, and what some may think of as a setback, but how can you propel you forward? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, nothing's going to change it. You can't you can't take it back. You can't go, oh, I wish, no matter how many times you wish this wasn't true, it's still going to be true. So there is absolutely no point feeling sorry for yourself. I mean, I'm pretty sure we're all allowed tiny little occasional little mind wibble maybe, but there's no point in that. And there's lots of things that you can do, take positive steps to help yourself like that. And meditation's a big one for me. And I was in a former life, I was an athlete. I played roller derby, so my positive mindset was always a big thing for me there anyway. So that was a skill set that I already had, and I am quite enthusiastic about persuading people to to embrace it, go with the meditation, think about positive affirmations, which might sound really cheesy, but they really do help. Yeah, I think it's important to just learn the lessons and take this as your wake-up call sometimes, I think, to just keep living. Just you can't just stop and give up.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and I think something unique about sort of your page and community is sort of just the realness of it, posting the good and the bad along the way, very nature oriented, and just candid life shots and experiences. So I think just being real about it has really sort of carved out a unique niche for you, whereas it's just everyday life, and how can you uplift yourself? So I
Yeah,
encourage
I mean, like when I hear from people saying that it's been helpful to them, and that it's not that just seeing people who are just super happy all the time and zooming off to exotic locations, which is lots of travel. We can't all do that. We have lives to live, but that doesn't mean you just have to kind of trudge. It doesn't have to be a life of drudgery still.
Right. Indeed,
Kind of
indeed.
appreciate the little things. I do apologize if you can hear a terrible snuffling noise in the background, by the way, because I have two pugs, and they think it's dinner time and it isn't.
There you go. The realness. There you go. We love the pups.
Oh,
Are they
one
there?
of them's coming to visit.
There we go. Good. You always love a good Zoom pet shot. Um, so what are the challenges and responsibilities do you feel upon yourself, sort of with the platform that you have, and the sort of trust and connection that you have with sort of your followers? Talking about, being the influencer that you are, what sort of impact do you feel like you've had so far?
I think, if anything, it's that awareness that it can happen to anyone. That you always think it's going to be someone else, don't you? You hear all the statistics, 1 in 2, but you always think it'll be someone else. But it can happen to anyone, and I think that's hopefully something that people will take from my story, is that if anything's a little bit weird, just keep asking. Don't take no for an answer. Just keep going back, keep asking your healthcare professionals, why does it hurt? And get them until somebody gives you an answer. Yeah, I think that's it.
I mean, that's super sound advice, because you are your own best advocate, right? If you're not pounding the table for yourself, then everybody, including your physicians, are very busy, and they're have 101 things at their attention. So your sort of story and your condition, you should be asking a lot of questions and not taking anything for granted, and just pushing the envelope, because you stand to benefit from that advocacy. Yeah, so I just
And
want to.
that peer support is what is there as well. So don't be afraid to ask other people who've been through it for advice. To see, are they going through similar things? I mean, there's some of the side effects for the Revlimid that I'm on now, that things were happening that I didn't even realize were side effects until I spoke to other people in the community and went, oh my God, we might be able to actually fix this. This is actually a side effect of my tablets. So that's important too. So it doesn't always have to be the health professionals you ask. You can start by asking your friends, but don't be afraid to reach out to people.
Excellent.
Even me.
No, please, absolutely.
I answer Instagram messages. If there's something you want to know, just ask.
At Gemma Seager, here's the
Yeah.
link. Gemma, are there any mistakes, looking back over your journey, that you wish you would have done differently, or could have helped you in a way if you knew it earlier, that you can share with anyone, or best practices? Basically, it may not be a mistake, but something you are like, aha, this is an aha moment, and everybody should know this, because it's going to help you so much faster.
Well, from my perspective, which is a UK issue, so it might not be the same over there, I wish I'd known what financial help was available. Because I am self-employed, and I kept trying to work right up until I was admitted for my stem cell transplant, and I was exhausted, and I should have been looking after myself more. And from my perspective, I did not realize that there was financial help available, and I might not have had to keep working like that. So that's a UK specific issue, because I don't know what the situation is in the US.
I think it's
But
a global issue, right? I mean, the disease causes, financial constraints, and there is help if you search for it. People may not even think about that and just, I have to deal with this, and I'm on my own. And really, there are resources available to you, regardless of
help
what
with the
you.
social side of things as well. Yeah. So not just the medical side, make sure you pay attention to the social side of things, and look after yourself. Don't be, I was very hard on myself for being tired.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
also, it's very easy to look around and think everyone else who's just had a cancer diagnosis is running marathons and
Right,
raising millions for charity, but you don't have to. Like,
right, indeed.
it is okay to just sit in front of Netflix. That is absolutely fine. No one is
Recharge.
no
Absolutely.
one's making you run marathons. So yeah, just looking after myself a bit better, I think. Um,
Perfect. Perfect. And so to wrap things up, I mean, this has been, really chock full of great takeaways. What do you think is the key takeaway, that you want to leave as an impact by all your advocacy and efforts that you're doing, both on Instagram, Facebook? What's the key message that you want to impart on the world?
uh that you're not alone. I think that sometimes even strangers are the ones that are there for you. So even if you feel alone, you are not alone. There will be someone who will be there for you. And just to, yeah, keep a positive mindset and keep going, and you'll find the help you need.
Wow, couldn't have said anything better there. And we will add the links here for how to contact Gemma. I really strongly advocate you follow her on social media through these links. I mean, it's really uplifting and just sort of amazing. I don't know how you keep such a diverse and high quality community, but you do it, and you do it with a smile. And we appreciate you know all that you do for the community, the multiple myeloma community. And thank you for taking the time out to share your story, Gemma.
No problem. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure.